I just figure we're almost in the church, so I figure we have to wait another 15 minutes for the rest of everybody to show up, you know. It's the way it works. Thanks for making it out on this wonderfully wet night. For those of you who, everybody knows me, I'm Pat St. Cyr, and I've been photographing things for quite some time. In 2003, my wife and I moved to New Mexico, and on that move, we were able to do a number of different things for ourselves. So I bought my first Hasselblad 500 CM and a Nikon D80 for taking pictures of fun things. Eventually I got a flex body. It's a Hasselblad flex body. It still shoots 2 1/4 film. So instead of going through, this picture was done with this camera. All but one picture in this whole thing was done with the flex, or 2 pictures were done with the flex body. The flex body allows a rise and fall in the rear and a tilt in the rear of the camera. And then the front has a bellows, so I could do semi-macro. So I didn't use it for any of that. This is all landscape work, pretty much. That being said, throughout my multiple careers, I've basically been a very much numbers guy. I was an engineer for 25 years. I was a financial guy after that for another 10 years. So numbers. That doesn't translate well to pictures. Other than it's just, I can use the numbers to calculate all kinds of exposures and things of that nature. It's wonderful for that. But the creative side has always been a struggle for me, and so that's what this basically is how I was able to see what was out there in New Mexico and photograph it. And everything is on, just about everything is shot on Provia 100 film. There was a digital darkroom. Everything was scanned, stuck into Photoshop, and worked from there. But it was older versions of Photoshop. It wasn't what we have today with all kinds of auto masking and AI. So it was a lot of fun. So the first place, there's like 150, and we're going to be going through every one of them. This is what I did on my vacation. Okay. Me and Henny Youngman. No, I'm not doing that. Okay, so Cabazon Peak. Cabazon Peak is a volcanic plug, or a neck, as the geologists like to call it. And this was taken, it's about 60 miles north of Albuquerque, northwest, out in the middle of God's country, which is pretty much everything in New Mexico. So to get this kind of a shot, this is June in this particular year. I think it was 2003 or something like that. 2006. So it was June, and I had hooked in with a Hasselblad users group, and as many times as I'd photographed things, I had never photographed the moon and gotten it right. So I sent them a note and said, hey guys, how do I do this? And they said, well, it's the Sunny 16 rule. Oh. What's that? The Sunny 16 rule. It's when you're out in, okay, not today. So let's say Tuesday when we were down in Schulenburg and LaGrange, that would have been you would have used the Sunny 16 rule. That is, you take your ISO and you go 1 over your ISO for your shutter speed. So I was shooting pretty much down there at 100. So 1/100 or 1/125th second. 16, if I'm in the bright sunlight, 16, f16 is the exposure that you would use. And that would expose film perfectly. That's the way Eastman Kodak set up all the films for 100 years, literally. And if you've ever wondered where the gray card comes from, I spent 3 years in Rochester, New York. All you had to do was walk out, point your camera up, and it was gray. Golly, it was a lovely place, but yeah, okay. So I used a 1% spot meter on the moon, and then I basically did a mental average between that and the neck of the peak. And I kept going back and forth every couple of minutes because the moon is dropping and the sun's coming up. So you've got to be quick and I wanted to get it within 2 or 3 stops of what I was looking for. So I know some of you have seen another image of this where the sky is brown or tan, and that was only about 15 minutes later. This is earlier morning at the blue hour. So, yeah. So, another shot of Cabazon, and this one, oh, you're right, this monitor really, okay, now from over here it looks better. Okay, clouds. In New Mexico, there's 310 days of sunshine. So if you can find a stormy day, run outside and take a picture quick, because they're not going to be, it's not going to be around long. I drove up, my house fortunately was about 10 miles or 15 miles north of Albuquerque, so I had an extra start on everything. So storm was forming, or it had basically finished, and I got there. This is on the north edge of the peak, and there's this old windmill there. Highlights were what I exposed for, and I used Photoshop to pull the foreground out. So, enough of that. Bandelier National Monument. This is in, if anybody's familiar with where Santa Fe is, this is a little bit west of Santa Fe. Not much, but up in the mountains. This is more of a reference picture than anything, because I hiked up to the top. This is the valley down through here, and I hiked up to the top of the ridge on the south side and tried to do a panorama with my.
Trying to get rid of this up here.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how to do it. Click on more.
There we go. We're good. We'll at least get back to the right picture.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. We'll wait.
Okay, now I can't get back to where I was.
Look at the computer monitor.
No, it's not on the monitor. That's the problem. It's on this monitor.
Yeah, it's on
His laptop. Okay. We've got a good picture.
Yeah.
Now I can't, I don't know how to get rid of this.
That's okay. It doesn't show up on the broadcast.
Oh, it does?
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
No.
Well, teach everybody to show up for the live part, you know? Okay, so while Ed is trying to figure that out, it's off. It's far enough off the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. That'll work.
Okay.
That'll work. Okay, so Bandelier is a valley. It also, where I'm standing is, for this picture, is part of the park. It actually covers a couple of these valleys, but this is about as far south as I went in the valley, because the valley itself is pretty cool. The valley has been cut out by a creek over the eons. The ancients, or the Anasazi Indians, lived in this valley. As they lived in a lot of different places, but they lived here. This is all volcanic tuft, all the way through here, all the yellow. And so they were able to carve things out. If you were to go over to the east or to the right on this screen, you end up at the Rio Grande River, or Rio Grande, excuse me. It's not you don't have to say that twice. And let's see, here is where the Pueblo is actually at. And then there's a bunch of stuff I'll show you back up in here. And then there are other things up here. And then when you get up to the far left side, it's actually the Valle Caldera, which is part of the ancient volcano that formed most of New Mexico. And so that area is a beautiful area. I did not bring any pictures of that. Oh, now we did this. Yes?
2 questions.
Uh-huh.
Is this a number of photos stitched together?
Yes, this is 3 or 4 photos
Right.
stitched. And
course, in the dark. I'm just curious.
No, no, no.
I go too.
Okay, so this was my graduated filter period.
Right.
And so when you stitch them all together, eventually you end up with this. I didn't realize that until I looked at it just recently, and I was like, oh, that's really ugly. So, but that's a graduated filter.
It almost seems like a curvature, except the wrong way.
Yeah, yeah, it is, yeah. Well, it actually, it comes all the way across here. It's just that this clear area, no sky in the blue here, it allows you to see where the filter actually was
Right.
in the screen and in the film. Okay, different shot. Okay, to the right of this shot is the south wall, and to the left of the shot is the north wall where everything is. This is there's a parking lot back up in this area that nobody knows about. It's amazing. It's where the campgrounds are, but nobody goes there for hiking and everything else. The road, this line coming down from the back, the background is actually the road that comes into the park. Park headquarters are in the middle basically, and then there's a trail that winds through there and gets you everywhere you need to go. So this is the same rock from down below. And you can see how the elements have started to cut out the tuft in this, the rock, and it's just carved it out. It's a lot of fun to drive the road past this, because if you're paying attention over your right shoulder, you look over and you go, ooh, that's where Los Alamos Labs are. Look at that, they're down inside a cave. So there are a couple of research organizations buried inside some of these caves, but not in the park. Just to get you a little closer view, this was an interesting shot. My technique on this was, my flex body is a tripod mount only, and so there's not enough room to put the tripod here because I'm in this walkway in front of the cave, in front of this Pueblo house or adobe house. It winds up and through here, where I'm at, basically where I'm standing right now, and so you had people going by and you couldn't set a tripod up. So what I did was I took out I have a light clamp that has a ball head attached to it, and I set that up and just hoped and prayed that nobody banged the steel guardrail. Exposure on this was pretty much expose and just figure out, do an average. So take the highlights, take the shadow or the darkened areas, and figure out what's going on and come up with an average. I could have used well, the film camera, I had no light meter like everybody else, like an incident or a reflected light meter. I had my spot meter, so I had to do everything quickly. This is actually inside one of the caves. It looks huge. It's like, yeah, everybody, we can have a party in there. Okay, you ready for this, Ed? I'm sitting here like this, and I can't stand up to take that picture. The ceiling, my head is bouncing up against the ceiling. This is made for very, 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 very short people.
Who used it?
Who used it?
Yeah.
Oh, the Anasazi Indians. They were the ones who carved it out eons ago. They estimated by historians and what have you that they left the area around in the 1200 period. So, and this hole is actually, that's where they would put, there was a wooden pole or trunk of a tree, if you will, and whether it was for storage underneath or for sleeping one on top, one and a bunch underneath, who knows? So, okay. And the last thing that I'll show you, this is probably one of my first shot in, wow, that really blows that out, doesn't it? Yeah, that's not too bad, okay. This is in the Frijoles Creek. I had just read a book by a fellow named Boyd Norton, maybe a few months before, and he kind of inspired me to get back out and start shooting landscapes. And one of the things that he put in his book throughout all of the many pages was to look down, pay attention to what's below your feet, look behind you, look to the sides. It's just not the grandeur of the space in front of you. There's always something else. So this happened to have been that something else that morning. December-ish kind of time frame. Again, spot meter. This was actually done with the 500 cm because I hadn't purchased the flex body yet. But the ice, so the exposure was taken off of the ice and averaged with the midtones of the grass in the water to come up with an exposure. And when I shoot film, I make 3 exposures for everything that I do. One's going to be, depending on, it's 90% of the time it's half a stop above, right on what I think it's supposed to be, and a half a stop below for the exposures. Okay.
Were you shooting slide or?
Yeah, slide film, transparency film. Yeah, it's all positive film. So the Bistai, the official name is Bistai Denizen Wilderness Area. This is, if anybody's been up in the northwest corner towards Farmington and Shiprock, this is, the way I like to describe it is when you get to the city limits of Farmington, you drive 35 miles south, and then you go through a big dip in the road, and as you come up, it's about a mile-long dip. And when you come up, there's a little bitty 2x6 sign on the side, thank you very much to the Park Service, Bistai. And it just kind of, that way. And it just points off, that's it. There's no big sign, nothing else. And so you just had to pay attention. I remembered taking this picture, and I hadn't seen it until last week. So it has been 10 years since I saw this. And I think for all the stuff that I've photographed and everything else, this is what a 4 o'clock sunrise or 5 o'clock sunrise down that 35-mile road looked like one morning. That's not the frame being cut off. That's actually the earth as a straight line across. The colors, the full gamut from orange through the lovely pinks and everything else to the deep blue. No filter was used. It was just photograph, take the exposure of the highlights and let it run. So this is one of my, oddly enough, favorite landscape pictures. Okay, so the Bistai is known for its hoodoos. The hoodoo is this thing down here. And I see that I need to redo it because I can see where, this screen's a little too big for that picture. Oh well, this is actually, the moon was actually in that position. I went back and found the original scan of the film, and that's the original position. So there's nothing different to it. It's just really worked in Photoshop. I was fortunate, the sun was up high enough. The sky is just crystal clear blue, or crystal clear out that direction. And so the exposure of the moon and the rock was just about the same, maybe a stop in between. So f/16, and I pulled the rock out one stop, maybe. Yeah.
Question?
Yes?
How did you develop, how do you develop? Did you send off or do your own darkroom work?
No, I sent all this out, yeah. I used to do it when I first learned how, yeah, I did black and white, and I'm trying to think, I might have done color once or twice. I guess in the Navy, they kind of, you have to learn how to do it. But after that, I was so tickled pink that I could shoot on film and put it into a digital darkroom, and I was just like, woo, I'm happy, you know? So, okay, so different hoodoo, same general location. So the hoodoos are everywhere. This happened to have been a photo club that I belong to over there. I'll do a shout out to the Enchanted Lens Camera Club because they're a great club over there in Albuquerque. We got out there just like what we do. We, 13 or 14 of us show up and we're all running around the Bistai and It was crazy. It's like, can you get out of my picture? It's 500 acres and you're in my picture. How did you do that? Again, exposure on this is really a wonderful balancing act between this bright, bright sky, because the sun is actually right up here in the right quadrant, and it's just blowing out the clouds. But this area down here was almost black, and so this one I did post-process recently in the last couple of weeks to try to pull it out a little bit better, because we have the tools to do that with now. But you can find them like this everywhere. This whole area down here in the lower right is another area of hoodoos. So you just have to, when you're out there, you got to walk around. The first time I was out there, I decided I would go kind of to the south side of the park, or the wilderness, and just started hiking up and over the mountains and the hills and everything else. And I'm going, where are all the hoodoos? The Bisti we're probably at 6,000 feet in altitude. The northern end of the state is kind of sits at 5-ish, 5 to 7. The Sandia Peak in Albuquerque is 10,500. So if you want to get a nosebleed very quickly, you just take the tram and go up to the top, and don't drink. Don't drink anything and your nose will bleed, I guarantee, because it's just so dang dry. Yeah. So the Bisti actually resides right next to a natural coal field that the state refuses to allow anyone to dig, which is wonderful because it maintains the Bisti itself. So this is just a little rivulet, I guess you'd call it. There was water at one point. Don't know when, but it wasn't when I was there. But this area in the lower right-hand side is actually natural coal dust that has risen up from the ground. And so it gives you, elsewhere in the wilderness, you'll be walking along and the ground is just gray. It's the quintessential 18% gray. So if you ever wanted to get, you just do that and you're ready to go. So the amount of rain that is out there, or moisture, could be from a little bit of snow. You get these bushes, they're sage, they're prickly bushes, they're whatever, but you don't want to run into them because they're going to hurt. Not badly, but they just tumbleweeds, basically. Yes, I pushed this a little bit. There is selective color in the old forms of Photoshop, and so I pushed the colors a bit on this. But that's what it felt like it looked like. And that is part of what landscaping and photographs are, is that you remember what was in your mind's eye, not just what was on the camera, because the camera records some technical aspect of it. It's going to do it at this exposure. It's going to put the colors on the film this way or on your sensor this way, and you have to interpret from there. So this is, I mean, the exposure, because it's lovely gray material, it was easy. It was just find a spot that was neutral gray and do that. This is the egg farm. This is just one little piece of it. The rocks are, they've been windswept so much that this is just one, I left another one out, but they're sitting around everywhere. And this is an early evening, low sun. This is with my D80, so it's just a quick snapshot. My buddy and I were walking around that evening. We camped out once in the parking lot. There's no, as I was telling you, there's no facilities. So if you need to go to the bathroom, well, have fun. Find a rock, So, but it's really an interesting place to go. Now, I've seen other people's photographs of the rock, the egg farm, and they're incredible because you can't see it. It seems to be getting cut off. The horizon is just right up here, and so you can get a morning horizon. So you got these lovely amber colors coming through, and or cool blue if it's far enough up. And you've got the light at this strong angle like we've got here for the evening, but it's coming in from the other way. Or you just shift around to your right on this and wait for the sun to set. And so myriad of shapes and forms and shadows that come out of this particular location. And like I said, it was a D80 shot, so it was kind of like point and shoot. Oh yeah, I got to get back here. That looks horrible from up there. Oh, okay. This is the Hoodoo Garden. This is one of many. And no filter. This is actually the way the sky was presenting itself. I did darken a little bit in post-processing, but initially, I think this last shot will give you an idea. From over here, the colors are just completely washed out. These things they look like they might be huge. That one might be the height of the table. These other ones definitely are much taller and higher. Exposure on this one they're gray. It's a light shade of gray, but they're pretty much gray, so you can just take a shot, point the camera at any one piece of it or your light meter, and you're pretty much in the good on that. Yes, sir.
What is the geological process that created these forms? Is it they were eroded from underneath? The material on top is a harder layer.
Yeah, it's a harder layer of material. They feel like, but they're not really rock. They're very just solid dirt. So there may be some minerals in them. I don't know. But this area down here at the bottom, they're mud. It's dirt. It's protected. And so it's protected. And so you can find some. And I saw one person trying to stand up. The hoodoo was only about this tall. And they were down trying to shoot, up to get this thing. And then they needed to get up, and they had, like me, gray hair. And they went, ah. And I said, I was just caught off guard. And no! And they realized, and their hand was like this. And they let go, and the hoodoo, the top stayed where it was, and they just backed away slowly. So they're easy to knock over. So
So they allow you to actually walk and touch, get close to all of this?
Yes, because there's no rangers here. There's no office. This is just open land. Yeah. So yeah, you can walk up to them, and so this is a good friend of mine over there, Peter Kelling, and you get an idea now how big these things really are. Okay. So he's in another garden. I don't know what he was photographing.
So you're on tripod or hand holding, and depth of field is multiple images, or just you doing the calculations to get the right depth of field?
Okay, so this one's a Nikon shot, so it's whatever, I'd have to look and see, but it's probably f/16 to get that. But this one is the flex body, and the flex body allows me to take the back end and push it over. And so by pushing it over, this area in the top comes in focus while the bottom is kept in focus. It's basically a mini view camera. That's what it is.
Patrick, about how long do you spend on each of these scenes?
Oh, in post?
No, on capture.
Oh, on capture? The hiking probably is longer than anything else.
I was really asking about, once you say, I want to shoot this hoodoo, set up your tripod, get your camera set up, take your images, what kind of time are you putting into that?
Probably 10 minutes at least. If I've been known to wait for the sun to move or the clouds to move, and so I've got a shot of granite cliffs in another location, and I saw the sun shine off of the cliffs a certain way, and then the clouds came over and obscured that, the sun reflection, I should say. And then I just waited, probably 10, 15 minutes, just waiting. Then I quickly took 2 or 3 exposures to get what I wanted. So shooting this, similar to that process, this is in the middle of the day, or yeah, maybe 10-ish or 11 o'clock in the morning kind of thing, because we didn't spend too much time in the afternoons running around. So yeah, it takes a while to find the shot, set it up, and get the picture done. And when you're shooting film, you got 12 shots on a roll. If I shoot 3 exposures for each scene, effectively I have 4 shots in a roll. So it was, well, back then, film, in the early 2000s, film wasn't horrible like it is now, price-wise. So, and my buddy, he discovered film. He was shooting digital, and he discovered film and started shooting film. And somebody gave him or he acquired a 4x5 combo camera. It's a standard 4x5, and I was so jealous, so, oh well. Okay, quickly on to the Chaco Cultural National Historic Park. Okay, this is one of the places that people like to go to. They hear about a lot, and then they find out what it takes to get to it. It's 60-ish miles. Oh, you got to go up to Cuba, so it's a little bit further than that. So it's about 70 miles up the road from Albuquerque, and then you turn left, and you go 20 miles on washboard dirt. And the Park Service is like, would you please, county, pave your road? And the county is the inhabitants of the residents of the county are descendants of the people who built this. And they're like, we're not letting bus loads of people to come through. And so they keep it a washboard, and so tour buses do not show up here. So it's a wonderful place. If there's 100 people there while you're there, that's really crowded. Saturday you might have 200, but it's massive. The park, this is Rincon, I think. This is on the south edge of the canyon, but this is probably another mile or so back. And then it continues back, and then it continues over and almost connects with the Bisti to the west. And so it's a very huge area. It's a very large circular road that takes you to 5 pueblos in the canyon. But you can park at each one, and there's one that you can park at, and you can hike out another 5 miles to a couple more. And then there's another parking lot on another area that kind of like nobody knows or uses, and there's 2 or 3 more pueblos in that area. So it's a huge number of pueblos in this area. Sometimes they get snow. They get really upset when you when you walk off the path, because this snow just melts into the dirt and or evaporates into the air. And so a footprint will stay there for a long, 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 long time. They got mad at me at this one, because the picture over here was not the right, so I was over here. My buddy Peter and I we didn't get thrown out, but because the ranger drove by, there's a road down here somewhere, and yeah, it was a lady, and she saw us, and she didn't stop. And when we talked to her later, she goes, "Was that you over there?" No, not us. We wouldn't do anything like that. Ranger, whatever her name was. This is, I forget the name of this one, but that's Fajada Butte in the background. It's just this massive, again, volcanic neck that sticks up out of the dirt. And there are pueblos. This pueblo is just the small one. On the other side of this little knoll is the visitor center. So, and it's a really nice, if you make time to get out there to it, it's a really nice little visitor center, and they've got a wonderful video about the ancients and how they built these pueblos where there is a wall that runs east-west from each one to the next, to the next, to the next, and you can't see them. They can't be seen from one pueblo to the next, but they're lined up perfectly because they're using astronomical sightings to do it. And then up in the butte itself, they don't allow too many people to climb up in there, but there's a carved out area, cavern, whatever you want to call it, and there are sun symbols. And so on the summer solstice, the sun hits it at a perfect angle, and so the summer solstice here is a big thing. And we happen to have, I planned it, yes, I planned to be there on the summer solstice and the full moon. When we got there, it was like, oh, are you going to be doing, I didn't know it was the summer solstice. I just thought it was full moon, you know. So, Fajada Butte, by today's standards, I would have tried to move over a little bit. That is not snow, that's just dirt in the foreground. I found I think if I moved over, the moon got lost behind the butte itself. It must have been something like that when I shot it.
Have a machete.
Yeah, really, yeah, yeah. I was getting in trouble for putting my foot in the dirt. You think I'm? Again, another moon shot. F-16 on the moon, and the setting sun was extremely bright that day. So it just worked out perfectly. Within another, this was probably the second day or the third day of the full moon, or the summer solstice full moon bit, because as the sun everything moves, the moon and the sun get out of photographic phase, we'll call it. And all of a sudden the moon is down low before you know it, and the sun's still up high. So that's what we've got here. This is up on one of the mesas, and this was my, back in my graduated ND filter days. And so, yes, this is that's what I used here. The feeling, though, while I was there was that you're up on this mesa, you've got this pueblo, this is Pueblo New Alto. There were two of them up there. And so you've got this location, and it's just all by itself. There's nothing around. There's no fencing, no telephone poles. It's just nature. And when you looked up, all you saw was sky. Just nothing but clear blue sky. So to me, what I felt was that I had the universe above me, and hence the dark sky above it. That's my take on it. This is the other one that's up in that neck of the woods, up on the mesa. This is Pueblo Alto. This is the older of the two. This one has a little story behind it. Besides, I got to maybe work on the green foreground piece here, the back, I guess that's background. It's a little bit bright, but, and the moon, the original picture, the moon is about the size of my little finger. So I cheated, and I took a moon and put it where the other moon was. So it's in the right location, it's just a little bigger than it should be. I think that's the only time I did something like that. And it works. So the story behind this one was our lady ranger, we kind of befriended her a little bit. And it's great to go to these parks and get to know the people, because they're going to help you find things, or they're going to forgive you for doing things. So she did both. And the afternoon before I shot this, or maybe it was the morning, and she looks at Peter and I and she goes, "So, are you guys coming to the lunar event tonight?" Bright boy. "When's the lunar event?" She goes, "Sunset." I said, "Where's it going to be?" She goes, "At, I forget the name of the pueblo, but it was one of the major pueblos right off the path of the drive." And so I said, "Oh, I don't know, we're going to go out hiking." And so I knew of this place. It was above it, on the mesa above it. So Peter and I drove over to the next parking lot, and we started up the path, and Peter was like, my knees aren't going to handle this. I might make it up, but I'm never going to make it down. He is 12 years older than I am, so he was, yeah. So he's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So I said, okay, well, I'll go up. And I took my pictures, and I'm watching my watch and everything else. And I said, I'll meet you back here at, like, we picked a time. And obviously it was just as the sun was setting, and I wouldn't get in trouble for hiking someplace in the dark, because they don't like people hiking in the dark. You know, it's one of those. So I looked at my watch and was like, okay, gotta go. I was in shape then, and I ran down to get to the stairs, the path that went down the face of the cliff and everything. Peter drives my vehicle back and passes where the lunar event was happening. And so he picks me up and off we go. So we see our rangerette friend the next day. I said, my gosh, that was a beautiful sunset last night. Well, where were you? I said, I was at Pueblo Alto. Was that your Jeep that went by? Yes, ma'am, it was, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't driving. So we got away with that one too. So that's you got to have a story for all of these things. Thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. So.
Isn't there more?
Yeah, there are, but I didn't. I told somebody I had 26 slides, and they went, really? I went, okay. Yes, sir.
Me?
You have the microphone in your hand. I thought you had a question. Oh, Bill's passing it around over there. So that doesn't mean anything. They're just putting it away.
So, when are we doing this, and what's involved?
When are we doing this? Okay.
Not in July, right?
No, well, that's actually in June. All except the winter picture were done in June. We camped out 4 or 5 days, and the appropriate number of nights.
When you say camp, you mean
We
actual
camped.
camp? Okay,
Yeah.
That's not tent?
Why?
Okay.
No, Oh, okay. So you have to understand. I learned how to backpack with my son's Boy Scout troop years before that, and so when you backpack, you don't take a tent unless you absolutely have to. So you sleep under the stars. So we slept under the stars. That was, the only thing you had to worry about was when you got to your sleeping bag in the evening, you picked it up and you shook it out because you didn't want to have little creepy crawlies and slitheries inside. And then you hoped and prayed that they enjoyed the warm rocks over there instead of your warm body, So that's, and when are we going to do it? I don't know. When are we going to do it? I'd love to. That's one of my favorite places to go is Chaco.
Twisted it up.
Okay, so just to give you an idea, my wife and I do drive over there not as frequently as we used to Albuquerque. Here, yeah.
How long drive is that?
11 depending on how many stops you do, it's between 11 and 13 hours. You go up through Lubbock, Clovis, and then go and pick up the freeway and shoot into Albuquerque. Sometimes we stop in Lubbock if we started late in the day, we'll stop in Lubbock for the evening. That's 5.5 hours. So, and then in Chaco is from the north edge of Albuquerque, or the little town I lived in, Bernalillo, or Rio Rancho, which is actually a bigger town. It's a good hour and a half to almost 2 hours to get to it. And if you're going to, my buddy and I did it, the winter picture, the snow, we did it in one day. We drove up, ran around. By the time, that was in like January. And we showed up in our winter woolies and, we're going to stay warm. And by about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, we're shedding all this stuff. And by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we're like, okay, now we're all sweaty And then 5 o'clock, we're like, okay, now we're freezing, you know, so, because the temperature rises and falls so fast there in the winter. The summertime, you can be, it truly is dry heat. You can be at 100 degrees, well, the thermometer might be close to 100 degrees, 90 something. All you gotta do is step in the shade and you drop 15 degrees. It's just so nice, and you know, the temperature changes fantastic in that
But
sense.
it didn't look like there was a lot of shade.
No, no, neither place. The Bisti has no shade. So if you want shade, you got to bring a pop-up somehow, a pop-up tent or something. And Chaco,
Get under one of the hoodoos.
yeah, there you go. Chaco, you can find some respite by going to the visitor center. It's an air-conditioned space. Quite frankly, what we did was the camping area is essentially, we'll call it over here, and the visitor center is about a half a mile away. And so get up in the morning and go over to the visitor center and utilize the restrooms for anything and everything that you needed to do, come back, fix breakfast, and keep on going. And so, and then in the middle of the day, it was like, okay, I really need something wet, so water didn't do it anymore, so you went to the visitor center, cooled down. You know, it was pretty nice in that sense. Yes, sir.
Let me take us away from your presentation for a moment. We have a fifth Thursday this month. There's been a little bit of stuff tossed around about where we're going to meet. Does anybody have preferences or suggestions for a meetup location for the fifth Thursday?
I think the Prost was very good. Prost House was very nice. I'd recommend the Prost House in Pflugerville. There's the other restaurant that we went to as well.
Well, I'm kind of partial to Prost.
The beer was expensive.
Well, you're a stockholder, aren't you? I mean,
Not quite.
not quite.
I got paid for a lot of that.
No, to me, that's fine.
Okay, so if there's no pushback, Prost, 6:30, 7 o'clock, the 30th. Is that right, Ed? 30th?
Yes, it's called Prost.
Prost, P-R-O-S-T.
It's right on Main Street.
I'll put the address on the website.
That's my interruption.
Yeah.
Is it Prost House?
When you went to the Busy Badlands, did you go from Bernalillo?
Yes.
Did you take that cross-country road from 550 over to the Busy? Or did you go
No.
Through Farmington?
Farmington.
You did.
Yeah, and whatever that is, 34, 35, or something like that. Whatever the road is, it comes back down.
Right back down. past
Yeah.
the rock there.
Yeah, because I would, after spending 1 or 2 nights in the parking lot on the gravel, it was like, no. So
Right.
Peter and I said, no, we're going to stay in the hotel.
So how far back east did you go on that Busty Denazin Road? It goes all the way back to 550, and there's a bunch
Yeah.
of stops all the way along there.
Actually, not very far. When we went in, the paved apron drops off and becomes gravel. And then there's you're familiar enough to know that okay, so we took the left Y, and the left one takes you down to the west side of the Bisti. And so we parked down there. And so there was,
Thanks.
yeah, so yeah, we were just down on the west side, and we walked back probably 2 or 3 miles into the Bisti.
Well, you got something like 40 miles
Yeah.
all the way back on the other end there.
Yeah.
So it always seems to me that there's a ton of stuff back in there, and
Yeah, actually,
it's harder to get to.
yeah, in all of that, I never went that far. You know, I never went to the other half of it.
Denazin.
Denazin, thank you.
I never know how they tell when one stops and the other starts, but
Yeah, but the other thing that I had heard was that the Denazin had more like cattle and animal remains, skulls, bones, things of that nature in it
yeah, probably
as well. So, yeah, because it was so much further back.
Right.
I mean, we were only a mile
Mile or
away
two
from the
in.
road,
Right,
you know.
right.
But when you hiked in, you were, I mean, we got back there and we were hiking out after sunset. And, you know, we had our flashlights and everything, and we're walking along so we didn't trip. And we found a fence line. It's like, okay, we'll just follow the fence
Follow the
line.
fence line back to the parking
Yeah,
lot.
and then all of a sudden the fence line went to the left. It just went, and I'm like, okay. And fortunately, Peter had paid attention, and he goes, oh yeah, the power plant over there. It was like 10 miles away, and it glowed, you know,
Right.
just the lights from it. You know, so okay, that's where we need to go. That's how we found our way out.
I understand that some of the hoodoos to the east there are a lot bigger, like
Yeah.
10 to 20 feet tall, like that, with the flatworms on top.
Yeah, I understand that is correct as far as I know too. What I did was the one with the moon above it was actually at the north edge of the western side.
Uh-huh.
And I was down, it was on a spine, if you want to call it that, and then it stood on top of the spine like this. So it was total, it was, yeah, probably 15, 20 feet above me. But yeah, there are some others that have magnificent swirls and curves to them and everything else. And so if someone, you know, if we wanted to go and do something like that, it would be either a drive-in or a fly-in to Farmington, okay? And the only way to make it a reasonable trip would be so that everybody was accommodated as best as possible with respect to facilities. There's nothing there. There's not even a porta potty last I was there. So rent some kind of bus or a van and get a porta potty to pull behind it, or the bus has one built into it. But then you're paying for a driver, et cetera, et cetera. And you could bring, you know, picnic lunch and everything else, and you know, we could do something like that. But on top of that, from Farmington you go up to Four Corners, and there's
Shiprock.
yeah, Shiprock, and there's a couple of different places to go in there. I went up a couple of times, but the last time I was there, I went to the south edge, and there are spines, volcanic spines that come out, and the road actually cuts through one of them. But you know, as it cuts through, you can also drive up the east side of it. I drove all the way to where it ended, and the road went up and over the spine, and I went out to the next spine, and I was like, oh, this is fun. Then all of a sudden the sun started going down.
Do you have a prepared Jeep?
Not the kind that you're thinking. I just I had at that time a 4-wheel drive Cherokee, and I just took my time with it. And the roads, they're actually decent. I never got on anything that was, I did get on something once where I was afraid I was going to get my tires locked into the rut, and I would snap the axle. But I was able to get out without any, you know, just very slowly. We eased myself over the ruts and got out. But up at Shiprock, the biggest fear that I had was when I came back from the second spine, the Jeep was at an angle like this, and I knew that the road was very short on the other side, and it had a drop off. And so I got out, walked around, and I was like, okay. So I got about 15 feet to get this thing over the hill and turned. And so I know that's enough, but when you're looking straight up in the air, your nose is up here and you can't see the road. It was a little unnerving, and my wife let me go by myself. So. Yes, sir.
So there was a question on the chat. Is there any glamping?
Yes, I'll be glad to set up a glamping, outing for, you know, a few $100,000 a person, you know. No, I don't. There may be now. It's been 10 years since I've been out there. So I don't know if, I'll have to, there have been some articles recently, I guess in the last month or two or three, where there's some kind of a glamping company and they're talking about doing stuff on the Rio Grande up in the North Country. So that would be, yeah, they're building some, or putting together some kind of camps that would do that type of stuff. But generally, up in the northwest corner, there's, as far as I know, because it's not that popular. People don't know about it, which is the lovely thing, you know?
As a group, if you were to like rent an RV or something and use that as your base station.
Yeah, yeah, that would be a way to do it, you know?
And you go in other vehicles, but you have the RV as your
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah, that's a possibility, yeah, to do something like that. I mean, I'll, if you guys want, look into it, if you want to do the Bisti or if you want to do Chaco.
Princess Craft rents teardrops.
Okay,
Small pickup can pull those.
okay. Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways to do it. You know, rent something, a full bus, RV bus that is, out of Albuquerque and drive it up. It's possible to take it across the road and going into Chaco. It's just people don't in general. So I'd have to check and see if they actually have any hookups or not. When I was there, they were renovating the hookup section. So they were basically no campers. So the biggest problem in Chaco is the birds. You leave your stuff out there, they're worse than bears.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like we need to organize a recon team to go up there and check it out.
Well,
Come back and put together some suggestions.
Arlie and I are going, we're going over to the Balloon Fiesta in October.
Where are you guys staying?
I've got, well, okay, so at the Balloon Fiesta, I'm not sure wherever Gary is.
Kind of waiting on Gary to give
Yeah.
information.
So we lived there for 11 years. We have friends, and so we're staying with friends.
Okay.
So not sleeping in the gravel.
I'm not sleeping in the gravel, no. Actually, we're not sleeping in the gravel at all on this trip because I don't think Arlie wants to sleep in the gravel.
I do not want to sleep on the gravel
So,
or not have a shower.
But
yeah.
I mean, are there hotels within a reasonable distance driving to some of these places?
yeah. I mean, if to go to Chaco, Farmington is 35 miles away. So it's, and you know, you've got hotels up there. Chaco Canyon is almost between Farmington and Albuquerque.
Right.
And there's a little town called Cuba, which might have, I don't know, you think so? That many? Okay, maybe 2 or 3 Motel 6 kind of places.
Right.
And that's still a hike. That's not 35 miles, that's probably more like 60. Yeah, it's a good hour, but it's possible to do it.
Oh, you drove 2 hours to go down to Schulenburg.
Yeah, I mean,
Hours.
yeah. I mean, Cabazon from where I lived in Bernalillo was a long hour and a half, and the last 20 miles was reasonable dirt road. I forgot one time when I'd driven it during the daylight, and I saw the rut going straight across. It was a wash, and I just, oh, okay, bump. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was driving along, and I forgot that it was there. Wham, wham. So, yeah, you buy a Jeep, you go to Firestone, and you get the lifetime front end alignment.
Get a couple of spares.
Yeah. I've been known to try to get out to Cabazon when there's 3 feet of snow on the road, and fortunately, this Indian family was behind me, and they just laughed. And they yelled at me from the paved road, "Hey, you want some help?" So they came up, and I had a shovel. I knew I was going to get in trouble somewhere, so I had a shovel with me. And so he goes, you dig out and put some gravel behind your tires. And there were 2 women with him. And he goes, you two, push the car this way while he backs out. He stood there, watched. Then again, I don't think I wanted him, after he got into my vehicle, to take him back down to his. It was like, ooh, yeah, we're talking about the whole brewery was, you know, he had finished off the entire brewery before he got in my car. So it's colorful in lots of different ways, you know. So the one thing that you have to remember if you go over, there are 13 Indian nations or American Native nations. And there's only 2, the Navajo up in the northwest corner, which is Shiprock is on their land. And I checked with them early on in my time in the state, and they go, yeah, sure, go, have a good time. Don't get stuck, you know, kind of thing. So they didn't mind. You go anywhere, take pictures all you want. They did not live in abject poverty like a lot of the other Pueblos do. And so there was one Pueblo that my wife and I stopped at, and it was their festival day. And so they had a market, pop-up market, and they had dancers doing some types of ceremonial dance, or not just ceremonial, but touristy kind of dance, you know, stuff for the tourists. And I'm standing in front of a table like this, I'm about where you are, and there's these 3 guys sitting at the table. And one guy picks up the microphone, and my apologies for the accent, but he goes, now I want to let you know, you can take pictures of anything in the market, and you can take pictures of anybody dancing out there, but if you take a picture of our church behind me, George Bush cannot even get your camera back. Okay, it was bad enough. I was like, okay, I got you. 3 times he told me, because I was the only guy with a camera, you know, so, and I found out later that particular Pueblo, when they open up for that one day, that's really a wonderful thing, because they're shut down and they don't want anybody on their land, period. You drive on their land and you stay on the main road. You don't veer off anywhere. So it's not that they're going to get mad, or they're just going to say, what are you doing here? And they're going to make it a little for you, but not anything bad.
Sometimes too, though, they say $20.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's worth it.
Yeah. So that's the only one. The Acoma Pueblo, which is west of Albuquerque, they're like, yeah, stop by the visitor center, pay your $10 and take pictures anywhere you want, except inside their church. The churches are sacred to them. Because they have this very interesting, and I'm not going to try to explain all of it because I don't know it, but the Spanish friars came in, priests came in and converted all of these pueblos almost by force to Catholicism. Well, they kept a lot of their traditional, you know, ideas and superstitions, and so when you are allowed to get inside, it kind of resembles a Catholic church, but then you start looking around very carefully, and it's like, okay, that's not Catholic, you know, kind of thing. So it's very sacred to them, and they prefer that you not take a picture. I mean, my wife and I were inside the Acoma church during a ceremonial dance, and it was like, no, don't even bother trying to pick the camera up. Don't. And I just left it sitting there and just enjoyed, you know. So, but yeah, you just pay attention, and you know, they have their lands and their laws, and they prefer not to be, you know, ostracized, or how do you want to say it? Yeah. So, but that's the only caution in the whole place. Otherwise, it's wide open. Just have a good time. BLM owns a lot of the land. State owns a lot of the land. Federal government owns a lot of the land. So there's lots of wide open space. So, yeah. So, you know, I can sit and talk all night about them. So, in case.
Bill, you should sign us out.
Oh, okay. Okie dokie. So, thank you very much for being here this evening and listening to all of my silliness about New Mexico and looking at the wonderful pictures that hopefully they were wonderful pictures for you. And thank you very much. You guys have a nice evening. Those of you online, good night. We'll see you later. Okie doke.